The whispers started quietly. A hidden $15 million palace, strange property deals, and the same familiar royal names caught in the mix. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, now the spotlight has swung back on them, and this time their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, are tangled in the story too. Reports say the estate, bought years ago under suspicious circumstances, has resurfaced just as questions of royal money, titles, and accountability hit boiling point. So, what's really going on behind this secret palace? And could it finally expose the royal couple's last great cover-up, the $15 million mystery palace? When you hear that a royal home sold for $15 million and for $3 million above the asking price, you instantly know something's off. That's exactly what happened in 2007 when Prince Andrew's former residence, Sunninghill Park, quietly changed hands. It wasn't just another country estate in Surrey. It was a mansion once gifted by Queen Elizabeth II herself when Andrew married Sarah Ferguson. But this time, the sale caused more raised eyebrows than royal waves. The buyer, a Kazakh billionaire, Timur Kulibayev, son-in-law of Kazakhstan's then president. And the price? So inflated that it made even seasoned property insiders question what the real deal was behind the scenes. That extra $3 million wasn't just a lucky bonus, it became the spark for endless speculation. British media began digging, and what they found was unsettling. Kulibayev was already linked to energy ventures and global business circles that often rubbed shoulders with powerful families. Paying millions over market value for a decaying royal estate didn't make business sense. To critics, it looked more like a favor wrapped in bricks and marble. Some journalists suggested the deal hinted at offshore connections or quiet financial understandings, the kind that never make it into public records but always hover around royal controversy. For Andrew and Fergie, the optics were terrible. Here was a couple already facing financial questions, lavish spending, unpaid debts, luxury trips, now tied to an eyebrow-raising international transaction. And what makes it even stranger is what happened after the sale. The mansion didn't spring to life with new owners. It just sat there, empty, derelict. Over time, locals began calling it the Ghost Palace. Windows dark, grounds overgrown, the grand home that once symbolized royal success became a quiet monument to excess and mismanagement. Even The Guardian described it as a decaying reminder of privilege gone wrong.
In it, because Harry, in his book Spare, writes about the royal family counter announcing and to try and get attention from each other.
The whole story almost reads like a parable. Money, power, and secrets tucked behind royal walls. Andrew, once the spare prince with charm and connections, had already been under scrutiny for his friendships with controversial figures. Sarah Ferguson, meanwhile, was known for her impulsive business ventures that often went sideways. Together, they created a financial storm that seemed impossible to contain. This $15 million deal was supposed to solve problems, a clean break, quick cash, and a chance to move on. Instead, it deepened the mystery surrounding how far royal influence really stretched when money was involved. Even now, years later, the sale lingers like an unsolved chapter in royal history. When people talk about Andrew and Fergie's secret palace, they're not just talking about property. They're talking about a pattern. Deals that look too good to be true, fortunes that appear from nowhere, and daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, who, through no fault of their own, must carry the burden of their parents' legacy. The question isn't just about who bought the house or why, it's about what the deal represented. A royal couple who couldn't let go of privilege, and a monarchy still trying to prove it's accountable. So when that $15 million figure comes up again, it's not just a headline, it's a mirror, reflecting everything the royals wish we'd forget. The secrecy, the status games, and the quiet desperation to keep the royal facade from crumbling. And it makes you wonder, How many more palaces like this are still hidden behind the royal curtain, waiting to be exposed? Titles, accountability, and the daughter's future. When King Charles III finally stripped Prince Andrew of his royal titles and military honors, it wasn't just another palace headline. It was the closing chapter in a royal downfall that had been years in the making. Harper's Bazaar and People both confirmed that the Duke of York would no longer use the title His Royal Highness in any official capacity. For a man who once walked beside world leaders and served as the Queen's favorite son, it was a brutal public demotion. And while Andrew himself became the face of royal disgrace, the ripples quickly reached his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, who now stand at an uncomfortable crossroads between family loyalty and public accountability.
Now, Angela, you've written a great piece for the Daily Telegraph about how Andrew's daughters Beatrice and Eugenie, now have one option: to voluntarily renounce their royal titles. You write, quote,
"Under the 1917 letters patent, Beatrice and Eugenie keep their titles by birthright. They are and always will be Princesses of York. But unlike their cousins William and Harry, they are not working royals, they don't represent the crown, they don't receive taxpayer funding, and they both lead professional lives outside the royal fold. Beatrice in finance and Eugenie in the art world. On paper, that should shield them from palace politics, yet in the shadow of their father's scandals, even those inherited titles now feel like relics from a different age, symbols of privilege that clash with King Charles's mission to modernize and slim down the monarchy."
Foregoing the titles is an act of renewal, a gesture that signals integrity and public accountability. It would be seen as a mature, front-footed family soldiering act that shows self-awareness and respect.
That's why royal expert Angela Levin's suggestion hit so hard. In her interview, she said the sisters may have one option left: to voluntarily renounce their royal titles, not as punishment, but as a gesture of renewal, a signal of integrity and public accountability. It would, she said, show self-awareness and respect for both the king and Prince William's preference for a smaller royal family. In other words, Beatrice and Eugenie could choose to draw a line, to separate who they are from what their parents' reputations have become. The idea sounds simple, but emotionally, it's anything but. These are two women who grew up in the public eye, adored by their grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, and fiercely protected by their mother, Fergie. They didn't cause the scandals that now hang over their family name. They didn't take secret money from foreign investors or end up in legal nightmares. Yet they carry the weight of the optics, the image of privilege built on public trust. And that's the hardest part about royal accountability. Sometimes it's not about guilt, it's about perception. For Charles and William, image is everything. The modern royal brand thrives on responsibility, service, and moral credibility. In that world, every scandal drags the family backward. And so the question facing Beatrice and Eugenie isn't just whether they should give up their titles, it's whether they can afford not to. Because in a monarchy, trying to prove it's still relevant, symbols matter more than statements. If they ever make that choice, it wouldn't be surrender. It would be survival. It would mark a clean break from the indulgent world their parents once represented and a fresh start for a generation of royals trying to rebuild trust. But until then, their titles remain both a crown and a chain, reminders of the privilege they were born into and the accountability they can't escape. Fergie and Andrew, roles, reputation, and excess.
They wanted their girls to be princesses. They love the status, and that's what's got them into trouble. Not Beatrice and Eugenie, their parents. I think Beatrice and Eugenie separating them.
When it comes to Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, one thing has always stood out: their love for status. From the moment they married, they reveled in the glittering royal lifestyle, the titles, the attention, the sense of being at the center of royal life. It wasn't just about duty or tradition, it was about image. They wanted their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, to have the titles of princesses, even though most of their royal cousins didn't. Royal commentators have said it was a reflection of Andrew and Fergie's character. They adored the pomp, the glamour, the prestige. And as history has shown, that hunger for status is what's dragged them into trouble again and again. Andrew's path has become one of constant scandal, financial missteps, questionable associations, and a reputation that's gone from royal pride to royal liability. But Fergie's journey hasn't been much easier. Once known as the fun, fiery Duchess of York, she's now facing her own fall from grace. Cosmopolitan recently reported that Sarah Ferguson is furious after losing the right to call herself Duchess, a title she's held onto long after her divorce. Sources say she feels sidelined and betrayed, especially after years of staying loyal to Andrew, even when it hurt her reputation. The same report claimed she's plotting her escape. A dramatic phrase, but fitting for someone who's spent decades oscillating between royal circles and exile.
She had very much been brought back in from the cold. And that is why now this will sting so much for her.
And I think she's lost respect to the British people, yes.
Lie low.
Lie low.
Fergie has always been a complicated figure, charming, ambitious, and emotional to a fault. She's tried everything to stay relevant, writing children's books, launching lifestyle ventures, even selling personal stories to the press when money ran dry. Her financial history is full of peaks and crashes, from bankruptcy scares to miraculous comebacks. But every time she seems ready to step out of the shadow of scandal, something pulls her back. Usually Andrew, or the consequences of choices made in his orbit. That's what makes her latest frustration so revealing. Losing her title isn't just a blow to her ego, it's the collapse of the last thread connecting her to the institution that once defined her life. The palace saga only sharpens that image. The sale of their $15 million Sunning Hill Park estate, reportedly bought for millions over the asking price by a Kazakh billionaire, became the perfect symbol of their world, privilege without restraint. The deal raised eyebrows across Britain and beyond, feeding speculation about secret deals and royal connections being used for personal gain. For many, it confirmed what they already suspected, that Andrew and Fergie were living in a bubble of excess, disconnected from the values the monarchy claims to uphold. It's a story of entitlement colliding with accountability, and it's not one the royal family can easily shrug off anymore. As King Charles and Prince William push for a modern, slimmed-down monarchy, figures like Andrew and Fergie stick out as relics of an older, glossier era, one where rank meant immunity and appearances mattered more than actions. Today, that doesn't fly. The public wants transparency, humility, and responsibility. 3 things Andrew and Fergie have rarely embodied. Their story, once filled with royal sparkle, has turned into a cautionary tale about what happens when image outruns integrity. Fergie's anger, Andrew's stubbornness, and their shared obsession with titles show just how deeply they've clung to what the rest of the royal family is trying to shed. The irony is painful, the monarchy is evolving, but Andrew and Fergie seem stuck in a time when being royal meant being untouchable. That era is over, and for them, it's becoming harder to accept that the palace walls they built for status have now become their own cage. Beatrice and Eugenie's crossroads. Beatrice and Eugenie have always walked a careful line, royal by blood, but outsiders in duty. They're the kind of princesses who grew up inside the palace walls but built their adult lives far beyond them. Both are ambitious, educated, and grounded, juggling charity work, careers, and family life, while still carrying the weight of a royal name that's become harder to wear. But with their father's reputation in shambles and the monarchy itself in the middle of a reset, their once comfortable middle ground suddenly feels like a crossroads. The question now isn't just about titles, so it's about identity. The truth is, Beatrice and Eugenie didn't choose the world they were born into, but they've inherited its consequences. Their titles, Princesses of York, were gifts from their parents, chosen more out of pride than protocol. Angela Levin described Andrew and Fergie's reasoning bluntly. They wanted the girls to be princesses because they loved the status. It wasn't tradition, it was ambition. And that small detail now hangs over the sisters like a shadow. In a royal family that's slimming down, modernizing, and distancing itself from past scandals, the optics of holding on to those titles are starting to look heavy. The idea of stepping back isn't new, but this time it carries a different weight. They could, as some royal commentators suggest, voluntarily give up their HRH styles, the Her Royal Highness before their names, while keeping the title of princess as a nod to heritage rather than hierarchy. It's been done before. Princess Anne turned down titles for her children, and Prince Edward's kids don't use theirs publicly. For Beatrice and Eugenie, such a move wouldn't just be symbolic. It would signal integrity, independence, and a clear break from the pomp that's long surrounded their family. It's not an easy decision. For decades, those titles have been a part of who they are, tied to charity invitations, public roles, and even the way they're seen in society. Giving them up would mean stepping out of a spotlight they never really asked for, and into a future where they define themselves entirely. But maybe that's exactly what they need. In a monarchy trying to rebuild its moral credibility, their quiet example could speak volumes. If they choose to remain titled, they risk being pulled into the same web of criticism that's engulfed their father. If they let it go, they write a new chapter, one that says being royal isn't about titles or castles, but about conscience. Either way, the choice will define them far more than their surnames ever could, because at this point, the York sisters aren't just royal daughters, they're the next test of whether the British monarchy can truly evolve or remain trapped in the habits of its past. The bigger picture, monarchy, morality, and modernization, if there's one thing the royal family can't afford to lose right now, it's moral credibility. Every new revelation, whether it's Andrew's secret palace deal, Sarah Ferguson's money troubles, or the ongoing debate about Beatrice and Eugenie's titles, chips away at the very thing that holds the monarchy together, trust. It's easy to dismiss these stories as just another round of royal gossip, but beneath the headlines lies something much bigger. This isn't just about palaces and titles, it's about whether the monarchy can truly modernize while keeping the respect of the public that funds it. King Charles knows this better than anyone. Since taking the throne, he's made it clear that he wants a slimmed-down royal family. Fewer working royals, fewer scandals, and more accountability. His vision isn't about cutting people out, it's about cutting down the excess. In today's world, where every move is scrutinized and every mistake goes viral, the monarchy can't rely on tradition alone. It needs to earn its relevance through integrity. That's why the timing of this renewed scrutiny on Andrew and the York family feels so symbolic. The $15 million palace sale, the title questions, the image rehab, it all lands at a time when the institution is trying to prove it's capable of change. Prince William seems to be carrying that same torch. His work around mental health, climate change, and community engagement has painted a sharp contrast to the scandals surrounding his uncle. When he travels, like his recent visit to Brazil for the Earthshot Prize, it feels purposeful, not performative. And that contrast matters, because while William and Kate are out there representing a cleaner, more modern monarchy, the ghost of Andrew's past mistakes still lingers, threatening to pull the family back into the same old cycle of privilege and denial. The more the palace tries to move forward, the more those older cracks show. For people watching from the outside, this isn't just about curiosity anymore. It's about values. We live in a time where public figures are expected to show transparency, empathy, and accountability. When royals fall short, it hits differently because they're not just celebrities, they're symbols of a system that's supposed to reflect dignity and service. So when scandals like this surface, it forces everyone to ask, what does the monarchy really stand for in 2025? The truth is, people aren't as easily dazzled by crowns and carriages anymore. The public wants purpose, not pageantry. King Charles and Prince William understand that, which is why both have leaned into causes that feel human and forward-thinking, from climate action to mental health awareness. These are not the grand spectacles of old. They're quiet, relatable efforts meant to connect the royals with everyday people. But that progress can only go so far when other members of the family, like Andrew and Fergie, drag behind a legacy of entitlement. Every time a scandal resurfaces, it reminds people of how fragile the monarchy's moral foundation really is. And yet, there's also something fascinating about this moment. We're witnessing a royal family forced to evolve in real time. For centuries, scandals were buried, whispers silenced, and reputations protected by power. That world doesn't exist anymore. In the age of social media and 24-hour headlines, every decision, every gesture, every inconsistency is magnified. When Andrew's name trends or when questions arise about royal money, people demand answers, not silence. And that demand for accountability is reshaping what royalty means in the modern world. This is why the slimmed-down monarchy isn't just a logistical choice, it's a moral one. The King and William know that trust is their greatest currency now. By focusing on fewer royals who represent genuine service rather than inherited privilege, they're trying to rebuild faith in an institution that often feels out of touch. The challenge is keeping that balance between heritage and humility. If they can't, the public won't hesitate to turn away, not out of hatred, but indifference, which is far more dangerous for the monarchy's future. So when we talk about the $15 million palace or Beatrice and Eugenie's titles, it's about more than gossip. It's a window into a royal family struggling to stay relevant in a world that no longer bows automatically. The monarchy's survival depends not on how grand its palaces are, but on how grounded its people choose to be. And maybe, just maybe, this reckoning, uncomfortable as it is, could be the start of something better. A monarchy that finally learns that true power doesn't come from titles or privilege, but from earning the respect to keep them. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.